The world needs your story in order to be complete. Ann Jackson.
You're listening to Writing Roots, brought to you by Aspen House Publishing.
Welcome to Writing Roots. I'm Lee Hull.
And I'm Lee Esses.
As we continue our series today on the basics of getting started and getting going and taking that idea and putting it on paper, we want to address a very difficult and important topic. And that is, don't give up. The world needs your story. Writing can be hard. We had a whole list of excuses that people come up with last episode of why they don't write. Today, we really want to address why you should never give up on telling your story.
Something like 97% of the people who make the New Year's resolution to write a book never complete that manuscript. It is very difficult to complete this thing that you've set out to do. And it is very easy to give up. So we want this episode to be all of the encouragement that you need in order to not give up.
Maybe you'll return to this one if you're feeling particularly down. Save it or anything, but make sure you use us as a resource for that boost of encouragement you need to get you past whatever is pushing you to give up right now. First off, we want to remind you to keep writing.
Easier said than done. Especially if you attempted NaNoWriMo and you didn't hit the goal that you were hoping for. It's easy to go, well, I guess I can't. Well, I guess I'm not as good at this as I thought I was. Or this is much harder than I thought it was. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't write it.
Remember, it doesn't have to be good. Especially your first draft does not have to be good. It can be absolute trash. Its purpose is to exist. We will talk more about that next episode.
And it doesn't have to be the same project that you first started out writing. It's easy to tell yourself, oh, I can't work on this other project that I'm actually wanting to work on because I have to do this other thing instead. I have to finish this first project. You will train yourself into not liking writing.
I recently ran into this and I sent Lee a message where I was like, I don't want to work on anything that I have to work on. Like, I have the third book of my Gamer File series that I need to work on. I have the one that I have been desperately trying to write for the last 3 or 4 years that I've been needing to work on. I have the original story that I started more than 10 years ago that I should work on. And I didn't want to work on any of it. And I just sat there and I'm like, I want to write. I want to do this, but I don't have anything I want to write. And finally, I was like, you know what? Let me just start something new. It doesn't matter. Let me just write something else entirely because I feel like writing and I'm stuck on these other ones. That's okay. I wrote something. I wrote a couple hundred words and I'm very excited about that.
Yay! It also doesn't have to be what you imagined it would be when you first started. Part of growing as a human being, which is what writing forces you into doing, part of that growth is discovering that things aren't what you thought they were originally. It's not as easy to write a book as you might have initially thought it would be. It's still worth pursuing.
It also doesn't have to be something that your family or any other human being will approve of. It can be something just for you. It can be a form of therapy if you need it to be. I, about a year ago, had been working on a story that was just for me to release a lot of frustration and inner feelings that I never need that story to go anywhere. I didn't want it to. I just needed to get those thoughts out of my brain.
And especially if you're a verbal processor, writing is super helpful and very therapeutic for that kind of thing. One of the biggest things I see new and aspiring authors tell themselves that convinces them to give up is, I can't write like Brandon Sanderson. Good. The world doesn't need another Brandon Sanderson. He's writing enough to satisfy that whole quotient. The world needs you. The world needs a story that you have to tell. Write like you.
We don't want you to give up because you are holding yourself to a standard set by Stephen King or Brandon Sanderson or any other New York Times bestselling author. We want you to hold yourself to a standard all your own. Something that will help you get just a little bit better and make a little bit of progress. We see this a lot stop authors because their first story isn't as good. It isn't as in-depth as The Way of Kings or as any recent other book. And I want to remind you that Sanderson's first book wasn't The Way of Kings. It wasn't even Mistborn. It wasn't even the first book he published, Elantris. He had other stories that he had written and told that will never get published because he was at a different place in his writing journey. And it's a different place than you are. You don't need to be any other author. You need to be you.
To put it in other terms, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson.
You mean not Sanderson terms?
Not Sanderson terms. Sometimes stepping outside of the writing world helps a metaphor land better. To put it in other terms, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson can deadlift 700 pounds on a normal workout day. If he can do it, so can I.
I want to see you deadlift 700 pounds. I want to see you deadlift 100 pounds.
Yeah. I would have to go to the gym every day for the next decade to even possibly have a chance of lifting half of that. As a new and aspiring author who has never been to the book gym, do not say, well, Brandon Sanderson writes 35,000 words a month on average, so I should be able to also. He had to work to get there. It takes time, it takes skill, it takes practice, and you will get there if it's that important to you.
Set your goal at something that you can accomplish. Another thing that we see that often prompts authors to give up is burnout or time management. Trying to do too much or never giving yourself enough time to do the writing. We want to make sure that you are making time for yourself and time for writing.
I don't remember who said it. It sounds like a Ray Bradbury thing, but one of those authors said, you cannot write 365 bad short stories in a row. You're bound to be good, and you're bound to get better with every single one that you write. So consistency and discipline to actually do the writing is 1,000 times more valuable than writing one really good story.
And I know that is hard for any of you out there who are a little bit neurospicy. Not being perfect at something right away is difficult, but it is the discipline and the time that you put into writing that will make you and help you accomplish your dream. It is not inherent talent or skill. It is not the money that you can spend on it. It is the time you put into it.
So if you're feeling like giving up, don't forget why you started. I feel like a motivational poster at the gym when I say this. It's true. If you can keep a hold of that thing that you wanted, having your book in your hands to give to your grandchildren someday, whatever it is that prompted you to tell the story, keep a hold of that.
And if you don't want to write that story, that's okay. Don't do it. Write something else. Experiment with other arts or try out other things. If you're meant to be a writer, then you will return to it. If you're meant to write that story, you will return to it. Anything that you explore in the meantime can help you be a better writer. It gives you more world experience. It gives you better insight into how things work. It will help you with your storytelling. We promise. And most importantly, when it comes to not giving up, remember there is no deadline for publishing. If you have to step away from it for a while, That is perfectly okay, unless you are under contract to offer a certain publishing company a certain number of books in a certain amount of time. There is no deadline for you to pursue the love of writing.
I would also say pursue the craft. Find something. Doesn't have to be this particular podcast if we aren't vibing with you. Find someone else that you can learn from and continue learning. This can be with the college that you're part of. This can be with a writing group. This can be with other podcasts. This can be all kinds of different ways. But continue learning about the craft as much as possible, and you will be compelled to tell your story, to finish your story.
Every step that you take is a step forward. Even if it feels like you're going backwards, you are still progressing. Just by doing the writing, just by doing something, you are getting better. Even if it's not the thing you expected, the thing that you set out to do or to learn. By doing it, by learning something, you are doing something in your writing journey. You are making progress.
And the biggest part of advice that we want to encourage you to do, everything else that we've said falls under this umbrella. Write because you like it. Write for yourself. Write something that you enjoy creating. Something that you will be proud of on the other side. Might not be something your grandma wants to read, but something that fulfills you as a storyteller, you as a human being, you as an artist. Fulfill yourself, and everything else is secondary.
Because after all is said and done, all we want you to do is
write selfishly.
If you have a question or comment for our hosts or a topic you'd like us to cover, send us an email at writingroots@aspenhousepublishing.com or find us on Facebook by searching for Aspen House Publishing.